October marks Nigeria's proclamation of independence from British rule. From 1999, Nigeria has transited from one form of administration to the other. Today, as we celebrate 63, it is important to give applause to our founding fathers who came together in spite their differences in faith, ethnic groups, and region to fight for Nigeria's independence, as well as evaluate to see if we are still on the right path in growing in peace, unity, and progress. Today, as the country celebrates its 63rd independence anniversary, let's join Sele Elisha and Rachel Tansey to look at Nigeria today. So far, how far? Sit back and let's do this together.
Thank you so much, Jemima, for that opening. We will be looking at Nigeria. So far, how far? The program is Nigeria Now. I am Sele Elisha, of course, and I'll be doing this together with Rachel Tansey. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Afternoon, Sele.
Happy Independence again. You know,
Happy
it's never too much to actually celebrate the beautiful day. And just from our opening, that's really got the ball rolling, in which is talking about Nigeria, how far, so far. Of course, when you hear Nigeria, how far, so far, the first thing that will come to mind will be the fact that we're going back to when we started and where we are today and where we are headed. Where are we going as a country? You know, these are quite a number of questions that are running through the mind. But before I dive into what we properly inside, let me hear your own perspective. Nigeria today, how far?
How far? Select not too far. Yes, we're not too far. It's like we're going backward in a lot of way, and that is the fact about our country, because when it comes to democracy, we are failing on a lot of level. Look at the 2023 election. We have an INEC chairman sitting down and telling everybody to go to the court, and then everybody decided to go to the court, and today we are having judges saying that they're overwhelmed, over 1,200 and something petitions left, right, center, and there are not even enough justices to do justice to all of this situation, when we're supposed to have outgrown that level when it comes to politics, when it comes to elections. We're supposed to outgrow that level. We should have been in a level whereby when election results are out, people nod and say the right person won, because we have faith and trust in our system. And then when we talk about our economy, I believe that just even one good example is the value of our currency is just enough to tell us that we are nowhere close to where we started, because there was once a time in the 80s when we started shortly after independence, and we were no longer using the pound sterling, and we were having our currency, now the naira and all of that. There was once a time that our dollar, our naira was actually above the dollar. It was 2 naira, $2 will give you 1 naira. That was how it was, as it is now. But now we're looking at 1,000 naira giving you $1. So it feels like we're not moving like this. We're going backwards on a lot of level. But then at the same time, I said it's our 63rd birthday. Regardless, we have milestones that we have achieved. We have grown in a lot of ways, and I believe that these are some of the things we'll talk about, our growth, and see the mistakes and just see how far we've gone, if we're stagnant. But then these are just some of the things that I know we've made a lot of mistakes, but then it's not so far. Yes, okay.
You carrying a book and a pen and then jotting down on your own birthday when people are actually, you know, celebrating with you and saying, Rachel, I want to tell you happy birthday. You said happy birthday, and then you keep jotting this whole thing, and it's more like a roller coaster. Like we keep going round and round a circle, and then from the way things are moving, it seems as if Nigeria is not making a headway. Just like you were mentioning, there was a time when Nigeria could actually rub shoulders with other world powers. I mean, back then in the 60s, we're talking about when you want to put the likes of Nigeria, India, and Brazil together.
Yes,
but then we're talking of course, Rachel, now we're looking at Brazil and India on BRICS, and then we're not even close to that. So you begin to ask question, what's up? What's happening to us as a country? country. I mean, do we need to go for a checkup? Possibly, maybe that is what is happening. And if you remember, and that is why I kept going back to the leaders we've had in the past.
Yes.
I mean, where we see that regardless of what was happening, they didn't care about what ethnic group they belonged to. I mean, when we started, Nigeria was not divided into 6 geopolitical zones. We started with 3. But today we're having 6 geopolitical zones. And if you're going to look at it politically, are all these political zones represented in politics? That is one on another hand. And then are we going to also look at the fact that as a country, we claim to be the giant of Africa. But it seems as if we are still on past glory because, yes, if we're going to talk about population, I mean, we can rub shoulders and say, yeah, we're talking about over 2 million Nigerians. So talking about human power, we have all that it takes. But then when you look at what is happening, and no wonder we've seen people coming out every day to say the fact that, do we have potentials to actually be leading power? Yes.
We do.
But then are we where we're supposed to be? No. And then it's a time for us as a country to sit back and say, all right, just like you rightly mentioned, today we're talking about $1, 1,000 naira to $1. How did we get to where we are? How did we get here? This is a question a lot of people will ask. There was a time where you talk about Nigeria. I mean, you cannot take decision on behalf of Africa and not consult Nigeria because we are very, very important when you want to talk about world powers in terms of talking about our continent as Africa. But then right now, I remember, I mean, beginning of the year, I mean, mid-year, where we had where the former president Obasanjo was there, and he said that we are no longer where we used to be. I mean, the likes of Obafemi Awolowo once said that Nigeria, we are not a nation. Because when you are talking about a nation, Richard, you're talking about unity. You're talking about bringing our diversity and bringing it together and see what can we achieve out of it. Because if you're going to mention the likes of agriculture, I mean, we are doing well if you want to talk about agriculture. But there's something seems to be lacking there again. There was a time you hear and say, talking about onions production, we are leading there. Talking about rice, we are there. But then we've been talking about when are we going to advance, talking about mechanized farming when it comes to agriculture. Because we cannot talk about anything when Nigerians are hungry. At a time like this, Rachel, it's expected when you go to the streets of Nigeria, everybody should be having a smile on his face. But reverse is the case. Right now, a lot of people have even lost hope completely in this country. No wonder we've seen Japa has become the order of the day. Not only are we having, back then it was only about student living. But right now we're having professionals in all fields leaving the shores of Nigeria to go out there. And then it's not as if we don't have what it takes to hold them back, Richard. But something seems to be missing there. And I think it's a time for Nigeria to sit back and actually see what are we getting wrong. Yes, if you're going to talk about an adult at 63, should be having grandchildren, right, Rachel? And then be talking about a lot of things. But we're talking about a nation. And so a lot of people have said possibly maybe we rush the growth. And that is why we are where we are today. It seems as if we are stunted, as if we are not growing as a nation. But today is not a day where we're supposed to be, only backlashing and saying Nigeria is not doing it, Nigeria is not doing that. But I think it's a time for us to sit back and actually analyze this whole thing, because it's easy for you to criticize when you are not in the shoe, when you do not know where it pinch. But when you are there, you really have a proper look at like what really is wrong with our country. Is she sick? What is the problem? How can we fix this? I remember we saw where other people are saying maybe one of the problems we're having in this country, Rachel, maybe it's leadership. Because if we only fix leadership, then every other thing will work out. Because believe you me, we need to come to a point in the history of Nigeria where we will realize that leadership is not about people serving you, but it's about you serving the people. We need to have leaders that will come out and say that, you know what, Nigeria is about what can I do? What potentials are in this country? How can I put aside my own personal interests to make Nigeria move? Because we're talking about how far from now. It's about the leaders we'll put there. It's about who is that person that is ready to put aside his religion. Because over there, we've seen that when you're talking about political power, a lot of people are looking at who am I politically aligned to? Which region do you belong to? No wonder we saw during the election, Rachel, we remember when we had, it was as if there was an agreement that for 2023 election it's going to be zoned to the south. But we saw that when time got to that, it being zoned to the south, something else happened. And then we had people coming out with talks such as competence, accountability, credibility, and people ask the question, are we saying that this other region do not have this? So I feel that if we really want to analyze Nigeria so far, how far, then we really need to sit back and see where are we coming from, because it seems we have forgotten our roots. It seems we have forgotten what we went through during the colonial regime. It seems we have forgotten the pain it took our forefathers to get here. It seems we have forgotten soldiers that lost their lives during the Biafra War. It seems we have forgotten kids that died as a result of hunger during that same war. So it seems a lot of things we have forgotten, and that's one problem we have. The moment you forget history, history will repeat itself again, because eventually it has been tested over time that once you have forgotten history, then eventually, if you've not learned that lesson, that you have to repeat that same class. I mean, we've seen that literally in school, that when you fail the class, you are meant to repeat. Why? Because there are certain things you fail to understand at that level, and that is why you have to keep repeating that level over and over and over again, just so that you get it right. So I think it's high time Nigerians, we sit back and not just talk about leaders, but how can I also contribute to Nigeria moving further? Here we are saying that we are not part of the world powers. We went for the meeting, various summits. I mean, our president has been away from this country for about 2 weeks or so. But then in all of this, investors is trying to bring into the country, how can we also be, when they're talking about making decisions on behalf of the world, not just our continent, Africa, how can we also be represented? So I think this is an open book check for us, actually sit back and, criticize ourselves and not wait for any other person to tell us this is where we are feeling. But then how can we sit back as a nation and say, okay, this is what we're doing. They say we are not a nation, right? That we are just a geographical expression. So just talking about different people coming together and staying together as a country. But we are not united because everybody is fighting his own personal interest. But I think it's time for us to sit back and jot down, this is where we have been. This is where we are presently. But we want to go further than where we are presently. And that can only be possible if we all put our differences aside, put our own personal interests aside, and look at the interests of Nigeria. Because if we say we want to be patriotic citizens, then I think it starts from us looking at what can I do to actually contribute to where Nigeria is presently, and then wanting Nigeria to move further too as time goes on.
Stella, we can't drag our leaders here, but both past leaders, those who are alive and probably dead, the ones in their grave, are probably sitting down and knowing for sure where they made a mistake, and the ones that are alive are also sitting down and thinking, you know what, this is where I made a mistake. Now, we had great leaders, but whether we like it or not, they made grave mistakes that are keeping us in the positions that we are now. And we can analyze various sectors like differently and see when our leaders could have taken certain decisions that could have changed our growth and accelerated to the point where nothing can tamper with it. They didn't do anything about it, because there was once a time, right, that we shortly, and I don't think there was a rush in the growth, Sele. Of course, I know people feel like was there, and there's no such thing as a rush growth. It's either you just make a mistake, or you didn't get things you didn't get the appropriate advice, you didn't make the right decision, or you didn't just seek for the right help at a specific period of time. Because shortly after independence, we had a very fast growth compared to other countries that are still doing well. We had less than 15 to 20 years of growth, and is due to oil boom and all of that. And then what did the leader at that time do? When you have an economy that happened to thrive with one natural resource at a specific period of time, I saw that we had a government that made a very wrong investment. Because a big economy, every economy, if you will go and research every economy that is growing, when you look at their GDP, when you look at their GDP per capita, when you look at their GDP growth rate yearly, these are countries that have big economy. And trust me, Sele, it didn't happen to them overnight. These are people that built one place, went to the next, went to the next, and then over time it became balanced for them. So when we had our oil boom in this country, what was the major investment the leaders made? What was it? We had agriculture that was thriving before oil boom, and then it was neglected. When agriculture at a point it was supposed to be taken to its next level, was left at its level, and then we had leaders taking the boom that made us the wealthiest African country, not putting it into more investment, into industrialization, into infrastructure. We didn't have that at that time, but rather a grave mistake of investment. And I believe that this is one of the places that our major problem started, because after that we now started borrowing, because prior to the oil boom, Nigeria had no business borrowing money whatsoever. We were giving out money, and the moment there was a mistake in our investment, Sele, we saw ourselves now going down the road of borrowing and not having enough to actually do, because we can even talk about agriculture. So that because if we want to complain about our population, then we are wrong. As of 2021, we're having a country like the US having over 300 million people, and guess what? Only 2% of them are farmers. But when you come down to Nigeria, we have 70% household into farming, and we have there about 40% into livestock farming. So we're having every house, 70% out of every household have a farm behind their house, have a farm in their village, have a land. Exactly. But we are still struggling with agriculture. We are still struggling with food security. We are still struggling with the price of food in the market and all of that. It means at the point where we should have a government doing the right thing that would take agriculture to the level that is untouchable, that nothing can shake it, didn't do the needful. And these are some of the things that we can go on and pinpoint, because you know what? Health on its own is not, we can look at our health sector. It is one sector that it's not like natural gas, it's not like the minerals, it's not like agriculture, it's not like every other thing that can generate. It's one sector that needs money pumped into it. And over the years, we've seen failure in doing that with every administration. We had few administrations that had a win when it comes to health, but we can only record one so far. And after that win, that is having the introduction of the health insurance scheme into the country, the national health insurance scheme into the country. After that, there haven't been a massive win when it comes to the health sector in Nigeria, because whether we like it or not, this is one sector that needs you to keep putting into it. And when you look at countries, Sele, that we go to for health, we believe, and we go to Sele, it's not that the health treatment there is cheap. It's not. The difference there is that it's available, and then there are measures put in place for people to be able to have access to it, such as insurance. But we once had an administration that brought it, and then all of a sudden it's like it died with that administration, and it didn't continue. And then the need to grow the health sector to the level where it can start generating something subsequent, because over time you will start having people trooping in, because your health sector is great. You will have people going to the hospital for every tiny little thing, amounting for millions and millions of people needing healthcare services, going for it, and be it at a bad luck of payment later, either way, you will find that the health sector later on its own will be generating income for itself, but it has to be after the work has been done. And so yes, it looks like we are lamenting concerning what should be done in Nigeria. However, this is a time to reflect. And it's not us bringing down the system, but to be able to point out, you know what, we didn't get this right at this time, perhaps if we are now ready to do the work and get it right, then we can start seeing subsequent growth, because you know what, we still have our agriculture, it hasn't gone anywhere. We still have our solid minerals, we still have our natural resources, they haven't gone anywhere. So it means we have the opportunity to sit down and draft out a new plan and be able to take Nigeria to the level that is expected to be.
Richard, truly, nobody can tell us the truth if we do not call ourselves and tell ourselves the truth. Right now, we're still having the labor, so dragging with the federal government. Whether you like it or not, on Tuesday, we are heading for an indefinite strike. And what that means is that we are ready to lose quite a lot of money, because we're looking at people talking about that daily we're going to be losing over 200 billion naira. So you know what that entails, right? So quite a lot, just like you said, looks like we are lamenting. But I think that the only way we can get it right, if we call ourselves together and say, if we want to move further than where we are presently, then we have to take drastic decision. And that drastic decision means that everybody have to work together. We saw it today where it was being said, are we practicing the rule of law or the rule of man? Because we've seen that over there, some people are above the law, while other people are not above the law. The law will catch up with other people, the law will not catch up with other people. That's got to the point that certain people makes it feel that if your sins want to be pardoned, you have to join a particular party. So this is the way we've turned politics to be in this country. This is the way we've turned even the rule of law. Maybe we need to restructure our constitution again so that everybody will be captured together. Everybody will do that. If we want to be a nation, no wonder we've heard people talking about, let us restructure. But you cannot talk about restructuring if the people are not willing to actually change and make certain, adjustment. Just like I said, with growth comes stretching. With growth comes pain sometimes, because you have to abandon certain things you've been comfortable with. So I believe that this administration, like we heard from the speech of the president earlier, he's willing to make certain decisions. But I hope that his cabinet members will actually help him achieve all of that. And they'll begin to see that everybody in Nigeria, if we want to move further than where we are presently, then we have to put the work, because we cannot expect to eat the produce we're not ready to actually dig and actually do the right thing. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. Thank you so much, viewers, on this special edition of Nigeria at 61, looking at the nation so far and how far. Thank you. Until we come here again, stay tuned for the lineup of programs. Bye for now.